Good morning, everybody. So I just made a 40-minute video, and I used my new headset, but I didn't hear that it turned off during the recording, and so I just wasted another 40 minutes of my time. Sometimes this really making these videos really sucks. You think that you check this and you check that, and the headset is wireless, so they turn off if you're not using it, if no sound's coming through. And this one actually does not give me a warning when the sound cuts off, so it cut off at about 8 minutes during the video. So I'm just going to have to use my computer speakers or mic, even though it's not as good just for today, but I do have another solution coming out hopefully in the next video. Okay, so I'm going to make this much shorter. This is only going to be a few minutes video. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what's been going on. I know it's been a while since I've done a video update. It's because I needed some time to think and before sharing stuff with everybody. I needed to get back on track for one because I've been making so many mistakes, and all of it's been stemming from the loss that I had on the 22nd of September. That loss has been kind of haunting me because it had been 10 to 11 months without any losses on my account, and then having a pretty substantial one really kind of shook me a bit. And I was in denial that I was back on track. I was making good trades, and I was making some good recovery trades all the way up until October 5th. But I was taking some higher risk positions and forcing some trades when I should have been really being a little bit more careful in the recovery process. Now, you guys know that when you have a loss, it's very important that you take the necessary steps to slowly make back those losses. If you a lot of times were tempted, or most of the time were tempted, to increase our risk to make that loss back as soon as possible, because it has a haunting effect on our accounts. And even 12 years later, I still struggle with that. And that's one reason why I tried to that I've developed my strategies, is so I minimize potential losses, and so I don't have to go through this emotional time. But it shows that I still have a lot to learn when it comes to dealing with the emotions after a loss. And so I am grateful that this loss did happen, so I can know how to appropriately deal with it. I did know that it was coming. I didn't know that I was going to have a loss at some point, but I honestly didn't know how much it was going to be and how I was going to handle it. And I didn't handle it well, and the recovery has been pretty rough so far. I mean, it shows that I haven't lost really more since the 22nd of September, since I actually did have that loss. My account hasn't dipped lower than that, but the recovery has been up and down since then. So what happened? I was doing well until October 5th, and then I had another big dip. Well, I actually decided that since my recovery process was going well, a lot of my trades were really happening, even though they were a slightly higher risk. I decided to play the no farm payroll, so the NFP. And you guys know how that works. NFP can be a really dangerous thing to do, to trade. And I've been watching NFP for so many years, and I understand that a good portion of the time it will either push down initially and then jump up, or vice versa, push up and then initially push down. That doesn't always happen, but the majority of the time it happens in some way or form. And so I was expecting that to happen. So I looked at the news, and I saw that the forecast for the non-farm payroll change was a lot lower than the previous month. And that was because of the hurricanes that hit the U.S. And so this number was expected to be lower. I thought this number was generous, and that the overall number would be much lower. And so what I did was I entered on the Euro-US dollar. You're going to be able to see all my trades here. I entered just a few minutes before the NFP, a long position, because the idea that the non-farm payroll number would be much lower than expectations and causing the US dollar to weaken. And so I thought that that was a pretty good play. And now, at the time, I was thinking I was really high off of the trades that I was taking because so many of them were going in my favor, and I was thinking, well, I can afford to play this the NFP. And since I've been so right, again, maybe some arrogance with the recovery process that I was having, and also the haunting of trying to get back to where I was on September 1st as quickly as possible. So maybe not taken on the best circumstances with a very I don't know, high-driven type of personality going into this trade, thinking that my chances of winning were high, and the haunting recovery that was still trying to work on. So I took this position, and what happened initially, the NFP numbers were very negative, and you can see that they came out at 33 minus 33K. That was because of the hurricane numbers, and so my expectation was correct, and thinking that this number would be much worse, and it didn't react how I thought it would. I thought in this case it should have pushed way up, but no, it actually went way down. And so what happened was I was thinking, okay, so if it's pushing down, then we're likely going to have a whipsaw action, just like I was telling you about, right? So the whipsaw action, so I was preparing for that, and got in at a pretty decent place in the market for that whipsaw. Well, what was happening was the whipsaw was very delayed, and I was very confused of why it was taking so long. And it's because if you go back to the numbers, you'll see that yes, it was very negative, but the hourly earnings were positive, and the big number, which to me was the unemployment rate, was still lower than it was the previous month at 4.2%. So I was thinking that this is going to be positive USD overall. So I was thinking, okay, I'm going to get a quick recovery on my initial wrong entry, which was the long position. So I'm going to look for that whipsaw, and the whipsaw was really delayed. And so I was like, shoot, looks like it's going to continue down. And so the unemployment rate being lower, I was thinking, well, that may overwhelm that whipsaw that typically happens. And so I was betting against the whipsaw to happen. And so I actually ended up closing out my trades because of the delayed reaction. And so I was scared out of my positions right down here, closed out, and entered on a short position, shot back up, entered again on another resistance area, which was a pretty good second entry, looked for recovery, was in small profit here, didn't close out because I wanted to recover the losses from my previous long positions. And I was still at this point expecting that the Euro-US dollar would push down because of the positive numbers with the unemployment, the hourly earnings, and people and traders would eventually see that the NFP numbers were so low just because of the hurricanes, kind of an anomaly event, that they would look beyond that. And I was wrong. And they thought traders took this as an opportunity to push down the US dollar. And it just took a while for traders to make up their minds, with a lot of ranging action going on in there, and eventually it did take over. But I held on to my positions for a long time, thinking that the pullback on the Euro-US dollar was limited. Eventually, I did give up my positions, and it was at this area up here where I saw there was a resistance, and there was a potential for this to continue back down from there, and I would be able to close out my trades. But when I saw that the market was closing candles very positive and good strength at this point, I thought that it was a good place to exit the market. And it wasn't the best place to do it, but I had to give up. I had to move on and realize that I had made bad decisions here, and I can't hold on to this trade forever to make a loss even worse. And it ended up being a wise decision to pull out. As you can see, it did continue to push up. There was no pullback. There was not big enough for me to actually close out the trades. I was running on a margin on this $121,000 account at this point anyways, so it made sense to close out for a loss. So what does that loss look like? It's this right here. It's that big push back down, and unfortunately that loss was about 4% on this account. I lost 4%, but was able to make a good portion of that back through my expert advisor. Now if you go back to the pound Canadian dollar, you'll see that the trades that I took, or the trades that the expert advisor took, resistance, inside candle, decent trade, 3 trades entered after that, after 20 pips later, good pullback. Now typically I don't need for the pullback to go this low, but I held on to the positions a bit longer. I had my expert advisor hold on to the positions longer in this case, and it ended up working out very well. Same thing here, ended up holding on to the positions longer, and it caused a very good recovery on the account, and I was able to get back close to where I was before the NFP. Not quite there, but it was enough. And so what is the mission for me after is this week. This week is going back. I'm going back to standard pip take profits on my expert advisor. So I'm not going to be holding on to any more trades for longer. That was something that I sometimes will do, but it's very rare for me to hold on to my baskets longer than intended, because I think that the longer that I hold on to my positions, the more potential for me to lose in potential pips and profit. So I was able to close out in a very good area here, and I was happy about that, and it was right near the whole number at 165, and so I thought this was a good place to close out of my 3 positions here, and it ended up being a wise decision. And the same thing here was I closed out my positions for profit when the market was just about to close, and I thought that I didn't want to hold on to these positions during the over the weekend. So my personal account actually did a little bit better than Robert's account, and it's because Robert didn't get one of the trades that I did. I also held on to a few positions longer on this time on the buy side. So this was my personal account. I had 5 trades in, and I was holding on to it looking for recovery. Then this candle happened. Some positivity in the Brexit talks coming out of the UK, and this shot up in about 100 pips in a matter of minutes. In some cases in a matter of seconds too. There was a big huge push, and I saw this happening, and I was like, okay, when I see the market bouncing up this much, usually it's a good sign to try to hold on to my trades as long as possible, as long as that push is going. And I eventually saw the news that came out a few minutes later about the positivity from Brexit talks, and so I was like, oh shoot, I'm holding on to this as long as I can, as I see fit, and I was able to come out with a massive recovery from my NFP losses. So the NFP losses happened, and I was able to make 2/3 back my loss on just this one trade, with not a ton of risk. And so you might be wondering, well, what if negativity came out and you had a 100 pip candle on the negative side and it went down? Well, I would be hurting, but I wouldn't have 10 trades that went in every 20 pips, because I have the filter that allows me to only enter 1 time per candle. So if it went against me, I would still be fine. But when candles go in my favor, holy cow, I'm able to really capitalize on those candles, just like I did here. And I've done it in the past when other news events have come out too. So my account is looking very good at this point. I'm still slightly down. As you can see here, my highest time was 5.92%, and I'm currently at 2.87%, so I'm still about 2.5% down. But you guys know that I'm typically shooting for anywhere from 15 to 20%, well, actually, 10 to 20% on my personal account each month. So I should be able to make that back this week if I have some decent trades. So I'm not too worried. I'm pretty close to break even on both accounts of where I was before the NFP losses, but I'm still looking for a recovery on Robert's account from September 1st. The highest that the account was on September 14th. The thing is that you might be wondering, well, what happened with your personal account? My personal account did not take those trades that actually caused a loss on Robert's account, just because of the broker difference, the difference at Trader's Way. Luckily, I didn't have an inside candle at Trader's Way, and unfortunately, Robert did on Oanda, causing and it just happened to be a losing basket that we took a loss on. So my account is doing very well. I'm looking at since I started trading at LMFX back in May. Back in May of this year, I am now up, and I've already made a withdrawal of $2,000. My personal account is up $12,000 in profit. So I've made 120% profit on my account since I started back in May of 2017. So May, June, July, August, September, October. So that's 6 months, and I've been able to make 120% profit. And so far, my risk hasn't been crazy, but I have had some struggle trades in the recovery process. And what's strange to me is that I've been actually doing the recovery process on Robert's account on my account too, when it's not really necessary. So another reason why I took a break from doing the video updates, so I could really reevaluate what I'm doing here and try to get myself back on track, which I feel like I'm now doing. But it has taken me a long time to actually feel solidified and getting back on that track. And it's been kind of a mess for me because of that loss that I took and the emotions involved in that. And they actually lasted a lot longer than I thought they would. So, guys, I think that from here on out, I won't be trading NFP or any other big news events unless I feel like there is some divine edge that I can get from it, because a lot of times what we think is going to happen in these events, traders react completely the opposite, and so there's no real strategy in trading the events in most cases because of the reaction that traders can take from the news. If you think it's going to be pause, if something comes out, that's a news statement that comes out that's negative USD, but traders react in a positive way, it can really throw off your trading and cause unfortunate losses. So I've realized that it's probably best just to stay away from those events and, make trades based on other things in the market. All right, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover in today's video. There is an expert advisor that I'm working on to help. It's more of a tool than a expert advisor that I'm going to be using, but it is an expert advisor that allows me to test the market to finding the best ranging pairs and the best trending pairs. And also it helps me in dissecting if a counter trend expert advisor or strategy is better than a trending strategy. This expert advisor was only finished about 2 days ago, and so I still have a lot more testing to do with it. But I think that I may be able to prove if trend trading is better or if counter trend trading is better, or if there is not a better solution from those two different things. Maybe trend trading and counter trend trading are just as effective or just as ineffective. So I hope to answer some questions with this expert advisor, this tool, to help in further developing my strategies, so I can find further profitable methods in the market. So I'll continue to update you guys on on my findings with that. But for now, I think things are back on track, and I'm taking a vacation here. I leave tomorrow night. I'm going to New Orleans for a few days with my wife, and I know we've been taking a lot of trips lately, but we have been saving up to do that, and I've also been taking some profits out of my trading account to help with that as well. And I'll likely be back next week for more updates on a more scheduled basis, so you guys can see how things are going. And hope that you guys are able to profit in this crazy market, and hopefully you're able to learn from my mistakes that I have been continuing to make, trading the news and trading with too much risk, and try to control those emotions, especially after having a loss. You know that it's how tempting it is to try to make those losses back quickly, but the safe thing to do is making those losses back slowly. I know that's not a fun thing to try to do, but it's the correct thing to do. Alright, so until next time, good luck with your trading, and I hope to give you an update before too long. Have a great day. Bye.